tweeted me and said, hey, this guy Gorka, he's not really a doctor like Michael Medved called him, but he did get a PhD. Supposedly.
Indubitably.
The reason why I say supposedly is he has been touting for quite some time, for years, that he was an expert witness in the trial of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the accused Boston Marathon bomber. But Fusion reports that based on an account of an official in the office of the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, Gorka never testified at the trial, and prosecutors didn't rely on his expertise in preparing or presenting their case. In other words, he was not an expert witness. His personal website, The Gorka Briefing, which has since been taken offline.
Dude, can I just interject for the first time in my life? I feel like we are collectively insulting Henry Kissinger.
Yes.
That this guy is like in that slot. It's so disrespectful to that old war criminal.
He used to have a section dedicated to his role as an expert witness in the Tsarnaev trial. This is based on an archive of his website. He claimed to be an expert witness in the case. For instance, in an analysis of the Tsarnaev verdict, in which he claimed to be an expert in a XM Sirius Patriot interview, as well as on the John Batchelor show. He's maintained his false role as an expert witness in the Tsarnaev trial on various platforms, where he claims to have served as an expert witness in the Boston Marathon bombing trial. That's a quote. Tucker Carlson introduced Gorka as an expert witness for the prosecution and someone who was, quote, actually involved in the case. Yeah. He did submit a so-called expert report in the prosecutor's office, but that never actually appeared at trial. Now, I could submit an expert report, too. He was never called, and nothing he ever gave us was used, the U.S. Attorney's Office told Fusion. So,
I have a PhD in geostrategic global landmass strategy studies from Trump University.
Well, but here is Gorka on
PRI with
PRI
Marco Werman.
with a guy named Marco Werman and
Werman.
talking about fake news. Because he's an expert witness.
Sebastian Gorka, we're seeing huge divisions in the U.S. at the moment. How does the Trump administration plan on addressing those divisions, some of which have obviously come out in this interview?
By actually implementing the making good on the promises that the president made in his campaign. So if you look at what we have done in just the last 15 days, it's quite incredible.
That is assuming that those promises don't continue to anger large parts of the country who are still protesting and still very angry.
Go to Montana, go to Middle America, go to the backbone of this nation that voted in Donald Trump. I'm not interested in the chattering classes, in the social justice warriors, the people who are spun up and wear masks covering their identity, destroying other people's private property. The chattering classes of Los Angeles, New York, even D.C. and San Francisco do not represent the people who believe that America can be great again. So when you say large parts of America, again, I'd like to see your data because it's not true.
Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to President
Look at the backbone of this country, Montana, for instance, or other places I've barely been.
Look at places where they don't allow black people into local bars, as an example. Or they have emotional breakdowns every time there's a new Mexican restaurant.
Tell me something. Have you ever driven a Ford F-150? or perhaps a Dodge Ram Tough
Have
vehicle.
you ever murdered a hooker in a Grand Theft Auto game, as an example? Or you would SJW, who would ruin video games with feminist propaganda?
There are 68 million SJWs in this country who are anything but the backbone.
It was just like a month and a half ago that a bunch of Montana politicians came out and condemned Richard Spencer. So there are some SJWs in the backbone.
Totally not interested in a free, fair exchange of ideas. I don't think I care about some SJWs in Boise. You gotta go to the more rural part of Montana where the real people live.
Yes, the chattering classes. I'm
The chattering
in no
classes
way
of
interested in the
Bozeman.
chattering classes.
Have you ever met Richard Spencer at a rest
Are you
stop?
aware-
The real backbone of America.
Are you aware that I have claimed to be an expert in the Saranov case?
I'm a walking insult to Henry Kissinger. He at least could get his way through a PhD that was real and
Pardon me,
credited
the
before he
real
became a war
backbone.
criminal.
The real backbone of this country wears this pin. Do you see this pin? I am wearing on my chest right here. This pin is the backbone of the country. It's the Order of Vitzie. I don't know how to pronounce it. He does wear a pin of the Order of Vitesse. And the Order of Vitesse was established for Vitesse Rend, established by Miklos Horthy, the regent of the King of Hungary from 1920 to 1944. It was established for both civilian and military supporters of Horthy's government. Horthy opened this distinction initially for non-Jews who served in distinction during World War I. Now, according to Eli Clifton, although Horthy's personal views about Jews are still debated, he was explicit in endorsing anti-Semitism.
Eli Clifton is very, very judicious. Friend of mine.
Yes.
Yes.
As regards to the Jewish problem, Horthy said, I have been an anti-Semite throughout my entire life. I have never contact with the Jews. I have considered it intolerable. Here in Hungary, everything, every factory, bank, large fortune, business, theater, press, commerce, one might say the chattering class, I added that, should be in Jewish hands, and that the Jew should be the image of reflected of Hungary, especially abroad. Since, however, one of the most important tasks of government is to raise the standard of living, we have to acquire wealth. It is impossible in a year or two to replace the Jews.
It's not a particularly
They have
long
everything in
period
their
of
hands, and
time.
to replace them with incompetent, unworthy, mostly big-mouthed elements, for we should become bankrupt. That requires a generation at least. So he was uncomfortable with the Holocaust because he felt the pace was too much to sustain.
Far too fast-tracked. You must take the long view. I did an article, or I should say, a bullet point map with a couple of glowy stickers on the long view for my PhD thesis in geostrategy at Trump University.
To be fair, in 1944, Horthy may have sought to distance Hungary from Nazi Germany, but agreed to deport around 100,000 Jews. So, pragmatic.
I don't want to kill Mexicans. I want to deport them. The chattering class SJWs, subtlety in these matters of great intellectual import.
Allow me to wear my pin, which was formed in celebration of anti-Semitism, but a pragmatic one.
Pragmatic one. And to quote the president, those guys did a tremendous job. Great guys, by the way. I was also involved in the OJ trial, and if they had called me to the stand, he certainly would have been convicted. He was part of a Jewish plot to overrun the country clubs of Beverly Hills. It's my book called The Real Jewish Factor Behind the Killing of Nicole Brown. But the SJWs are too afraid to touch this. I do, honestly. I'm like, how weird is it that I'm like, dude, like, you had Henry Kissinger was like, you know, he knew what Laos was before he committed war crimes there, you know, like.
You basically just need the accent.
You just need the accent. Exactly.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.